Welcome to the R7 podcast, sponsored by M is Good. R7 is an innovative, God-inspiring process that explores personal and professional purpose. R7 analyzes 7 strategies to transform your vision and find direction in your organizational marketing. R7 establishes clarity and guidance for the gift we call life. Welcome to the podcast, Dave Bennett.
What's up? Today we're planning to win.
Dude, we're planning to win. Let me just show you this real quick. This is incredible. Look at this set. Brand new set. I'm so excited, man. Me and my team been working hard on moving this podcast over to this incredible set. So excited to be here. We are going to talk about the power of doubt. Whew. So wrote this article on the power of doubt. It comes from a sports psychology article. Felton Wood, can self-doubt be beneficial to performance? And I also did a cross-reference on this with Zigger Van Hess, Van Hess, the power of becoming a skeptic. So I took these two articles, put my brain around it, wrote this incredible blog on it. And today, I know you read it, I know you're excited to talk about it. So, it's entitled The Power of Doubt in Organizations, When Faith Must Prevail. Whew.
Yep.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah. And I loved it. I mean, there's a lot of good things to think about in there. You were able to weave in some really good biblical narrative in there and some good examples. But I think, if you're listening, whether you played sports, or if you're in the marketplace, there is a lot of practical application, Dave, that you call out for those of us that are, out working it during the week and are competing on a stage, whether we're hitting pucks, shooting a ball, throwing a football or whatever, kicking a ball. The application is crazy.
Yeah, so let's talk about the application. Let's break it down. So the essence of this article falls into 2 categories. One, they really talk about research and how when you're doing research, doubt is good. It actually sharpens everybody around you. You've got to question things. And they also talk about performance. So 2 categories, research and performance. So on the performance side, doubt is cancerous. Doubt kills the team. It is not good when you're talking about performance. And so this is where this championship mindset comes in, where everybody around you's got to be aligned. There's got to be a commitment to the intensity. There's got to be, you got to eliminate hesitation. We got to focus on precision. This is some of the tenets of a championship mindset. I know I've been part of 4 championship teams in my youth. And then as an adult coaching on the sports psych side, 2 championship teams. And so this is where the commitment to intensity is there, the focus, precision, and eliminating hesitation. We just can't hesitate in a performance setting. Organizationally, we got to ask, the right questions and get on board with the vision. What do you think about that, Dave?
I think one of the early steps in doing this, right? Because there's a leadership component to it. Like, how do you get rid of doubt as a leader who's leading a team? And then how do you get rid of your own doubt, your self-doubt? And the team piece, for those of you that didn't watch it, I encourage you to go watch it, but go back to watch the seasons of Ted Lasso. Right? Yeah. Think about it. One of the first things he does is that yellow piece of paper that he writes in there. And I've seen it now on coffee mugs, pint glasses, calendars, whatever. And it's just one word, and it's believe. Yeah. And that's the first part, right? Is you've got to believe. And it doesn't say have a good idea. It doesn't say only when it's convenient. It says believe. And you can go back into teams this fall. You can go into college football. The 2 that made it to the end, and again, I'm partial because I'm a huge Irish fan, but you listen to those players talk, you listen to the coaches talk, they all have the same thing in common. when their backs are against the wall, they just have a sense that they believe that their team is going to figure out a way to make it happen. And to me, that's why they both made it to the end, right? We have the Super Bowl coming up. That's why they both make it to the end. Kansas City had a lot of ugly wins this year as the Chiefs, but they believe. And they have a coach in Andy Reid and their coordinators that believe. I mean, that belief, you think about the teams where you won a championship, you think about the teams where you've coached them. I think about, my examples, your examples. The belief piece, to your point that you just got into talking about, is the cornerstone, the tip of the spear, right? The middle of the bullseye. That everything starts and ends there, right?
Yeah. I think it's so easy to see those teams and, and understand that they have that belief. But also I think there's a little bit that we got to just uncover some things in there when you don't believe you're on a team. When you're in an organization, Christian, not Christian, doesn't matter. You're in an organization where you do not believe the leader. What do you do? And I've always coached around this idea that, and I was actually, I've got a really cool story. I was on a years ago. I was on a board with some really cool people, some high performing NHL players, and I couldn't get on board with what they were doing, and there was a couple other people in the room that couldn't. And I had this guy who was a pastor. His name was Les, and we should have Les on because he would tell a phenomenal story here. But Les said, "Hey, Dave, you and I are not on board with this. I get it, but the power of unity, of us doing this together, is way more powerful than you and I trying to drive our point home." And at that point, it just deflated me, Dave. It just absolutely deflated me because he was so right. Me bat channeling in the corner, talking negative. I was
That's right.
cancerous.
Yep. And it creates, doubt creates drama,
Yep.
right? And drama, as I used to define it to teams in the past, is I would say drama happens when I choose me over we. And the challenge never goes away because it's not like you're ever on a team or part of an organization where your personal agenda matches the vision.
Yeah.
You always have an opinion. There's always a way you think that we should go, a way that it can get better. And that's where you have to find a way, and this is the tricky part, right? To submit to the vision. And submit is not a sexy word. It's not something we get excited about, but submit to the leadership, submit to the direction because the vision and the team is at stake. And I think that's what your friend was saying. Was, hey,
Yeah.
we've got really good ideas, but at the end of the day, is it worth submarining the entire team? And how many examples? Oh, sports. Oh, kill me. How many examples have we seen
Yeah.
of a subculture being created that is anti the coach and somehow they get the coach fired? They bring in a new coach. Does it get better? Most of the time, no. Those
Yeah.
players are the ones that actually have to leave.
Yeah. So let me just this in this article that I wrote, when you have
Hmm.
doubt, it's erosion of trust, hesitation and paralysis, second guessing abilities, breakdown in communication, clouded vision, stagnation in innovation, and escalation of minor setbacks. Like, how many times have we been in meetings where people are making a mountain out of a molehill, going,
Oh
dude?
yeah.
And this goes back to what we've talked about so many times on this podcast about low and high EI.
Oh yeah.
Right? When you're taking it on by yourself and you're not getting your way and you're pouting in the corner, you are cancerous, period. So, you have to put your flap, your fear, lust, anger, pride aside, right? And get on board with the vision and be a team player. This is what
Absolutely.
moves the ball down the field. Like, and so I love this antidote of faith, right? Faith in vision, faith in leadership, faith in the process. Like, we have the faith to move forward. And you have to step out on that faith, and you have to, like, just be faithful that, like, it's gonna be okay, man. You're not gonna get fired, like,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and I love what we're talking about, and taking personal accountability, making a choice, dump the bad attitude, get in line and just see how far you can get with where you're going. But I guess the question I have back to you, L Dr. Dave,
Yes, sir.
what do you do when you see those things that you just listed and you're the leader? What's your move?
Well, yeah, my move, I mean,
Yeah,
it's probably, I mean, it's served me well over the years. I don't know if it's the right move, but I will say that I call it out. I pull them aside, nothing public, but pull them aside and say, "Hey, like, this is where we're going, and, like, you have to let go. If you can't, we'll move you to a different place." And I've had that conversation one on one, and I'm not afraid to have it. And I've had the conversation with executives that have brought me in saying, "Hey, Wendy's not on board, and I don't think she's ever get on board. So you may not have a conversation with her to say, hey, like, we see that you're not on board. Like, we can move you now. I'm not saying fire you, just move you to a different part of the organization where you can be on board because you do have gifts that God has called you to, and maybe this isn't. Maybe this committee or this team is not part of your gifting."
yeah. So one of the things I like to think about is this: if you have a clear and compelling vision, and I even think back to your example from years ago, working with a club level college hockey team, and right,
Hmm.
the vision is we want to win a championship, we want to win something. So whether it's that, or you want to do something in the marketplace that's going to shake it up, you want to be a leader in your market, you want to take market share, or whatever. One of the things I always like to say is let the vision be the bad guy.
Yeah.
Like, if somebody is just not getting it, and they, whether it's their choice, they don't understand or whatever, but it's a lot of times if it's their choice and they're making bad decisions, you just bring them back to the vision again. You go, hey, do you remember the vision is we want to win a championship,
Hmm.
but nothing in your behavior reflects that. So what I'm not saying is I am personally attacking you and trying to take you down to Chinatown. No. What I'm saying is here's the vision, clear and compelling state of where we want to get to. Your actions don't match. What do we got to do to change that? What's happening that I don't see? And when you do that, that way you're not coming across as full blast attacking, maybe based
Yeah.
on how that person reacts. They become a lot more open to go, yeah, you're right. I guess I'm not. So what are the issues? Let's take time out and talk about it. Helps you really, really frame it up a little bit better.
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of times it comes down to, do you feel valued? Do you feel appreciated? And do you feel loved?
Yeah,
And if you're not, if the vision, you just can't get on with the vision, get on board with it, and you're not feeling valued, appreciated, and loved, like your voice is being heard in the room, maybe it's to say, hey, I don't feel heard. I want to be heard here, and I want to be taken in consideration, but I don't feel, and the leader will say, okay, get out. I don't want to explain it to you. Like, I can
yeah,
imagine being in some rooms with Donald Trump right now. Like, get out,
oh yeah,
right? Like,
oh
we don't
yeah,
have time for that, which is perfectly fine. Or, I'm sorry. You know what? Let's get you on board. Like, we need you here, and so your opinion matters. It could go either direction.
yeah.
But I think you're spot on with the behavior is not attacking their identity, saying, "Hey, your identity is not matching up to where we're going."
That's right.
Did I say that right? Your behavior is not matching up to where you're going. It has nothing to do with your identity. Here's what we need. What do we need to overcome to get you on board?
Yep.
That's a fun conversation. I want to bring in a Tom Brady said this: if you don't believe in yourself, why should anybody else believe in you? The first thing
Mhm.
you've got to do is say, I'm worth it. I can do this. I can make this team better. Championship teams understand that doubt is their greatest enemy. The moment players stop believing in themselves, their teammates, their system, and their leadership, peak performance becomes impossible.
So I loved reading that in your blog, and it made me start to think about how doubt comes sometimes gets misapplied, right? When you think about some of the greatest things you've got to do, and I'll list a few, right?
Mhm.
right before you walk on the ice in a championship game,
Yep.
right? Or what these guys are going to deal with when they get on the field for the Super Bowl, or when they sat in the AFC or NFC championship, equal to when people get to go do a presentation in the boardroom, that feeling that they have right before they turn around to look at everybody there to start the presentation, right? Author Steve Farber calls it, and I'll edit it in one word for it, but he calls it the oh crap moment. And he challenges us to think about putting ourselves in as many oh crap moments as possible, because it's in those moments we are forced to act and live as extreme leaders. Same thing you get if you've ever gone surfing right when you get on top of a wave. It's like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do now? And some people throw up or whatever in preparation for that. But I think some people look at that as doubt and fear when it's really not. It's
Mm.
really that being in an extreme situation, believing in yourself, but you're scared to death. Fear and doubt are two different things.
Yeah.
Nowhere in your article do you say fear is bad. Fear is horrible. You know, you think about that great quote from the movie Twisters that came out last year, right? Right? You don't run away from your fears, you ride them.
Mm. Yeah.
And
Good.
that's where I think doubt gets misapplied, is sometimes people assign that feeling to doubt when it's not doubt, man. It's just plain old fear, and it's a good thing, and you got to go after it. And that's what allows you to do great things, you know? But if you don't have a good coach, you don't have good teammates, they can also assign that doubt to that and say, why, why are you doubting yourself? And the frustration is, well, you're not. But if they call it out, you're tempted to believe that that's what it is, doubt. And then there starts your cancer again, right? One of the words you use in your blog is metastasize. That's what
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, you've got people that, that look to you.
Yep.
You've got a strong vision. What are
Yep.
you doing personally with people that are not on board or can't see the vision? How are you helping them or negotiating with them or not?
I do a few different things. You know, when I do, vision casting or talking about, what we're going to do, one of the questions I always try to answer for them is that simple question of what's in it for me. Or
Mhm.
like I like to call it with 'em. If you take the first letter of every word, with 'em, baby. Let's talk about your with 'em. What's in it for me? And I was doing that a couple months ago in a um, division-wide teams meeting, really talking about the 5-year vision that I have for the group that I lead. And that was the first thing I talked about. Let's hit the with 'em. And if you can personalize it and help them get a glimpse of what can happen if we all row in the same direction. It doesn't mean we all row at the same speed.
Mm.
Don't worry about that. If we all row in the same direction, and one of the things your blog calls out is this idea that you've got so much trust built that when it's game time and it's go time that you can trust the other people to do their job. If you can build that trust, build that belief, help them understand the benefits of what this is going to do for them, they a lot of times when you personalize it will grab onto it a lot easier. The other
Yeah.
side is gosh, Dave, how many years have we been talking about this? Is the idea that vision attaches to the limbic side of your brain.
Yeah.
So now that side, like story and narrative, that's the side that feeds and goes nuts when you're watching a movie. It's all limbic. You imagine yourself in the movie. Or, or if you like a series, you're Yellowstone and who are you in the show
Sure.
and all these things. That's all limbic. I'm not talking about facts and figures in black and white. I'm talking about, can you imagine what it's going to be like when and then we fill in the blank. Can one of the things with growth, here's another one, another tip for you if you're listening is, with growth comes opportunity. If we grow and we go where we believe we're being called to go and what we're going to do, We're going to grow, and that's going to open up doors of opportunity for everybody here if you're on the team and you're crushing it. And then I also pop the balloon a little bit, and I say with growth comes complexity, which means there's going to be harder decisions we have to make, and some of them you may not like, but it's always going to be for the good of the team. Those are the things that we want to wrestle with. I want more complex decisions because we want to get better. But to ask somebody to say, hey, will you join me in this pursuit is a big deal. John Maxwell likes to say, you got to touch a heart before you can ask for a hand. It's this idea of law of connectivity. And if you personalize it, you're touching that heart and learning about them and helping them understand how it benefits them. And then you ask them for help and ask for their hand and say, I'm not gonna be able to do this alone. We are going to need you. You're here for a reason, for such a time as this. Let's go.
I love this. And one thing I want to point out is that, if you're struggling with the vision or the vision may not even be there, going to the leader and saying, "Hey, I'm struggling with this. I want to be on your team. I just I just have some questions. Can you take some time with me?" This is where empathy comes in because I know
Oh
as a
yeah.
leader, I don't communicate as well as I should. And so I love it when my team comes to me and says, "Hey, I don't understand this. I need some help. I want to get behind. I want to help you. I'm not the adversary. I want to help, get me on board." And I go, "Okay, this is great." So I just want to say, if you're doubting that, get eh, the leader isn't as on top as you probably think. Have some empathy for them and ask them to be clear and concise and slow them down a little bit. They will not like to be slowed down, but they will
Yeah.
appreciate it in the long run that they have a teammate that cares about it. So it's not
And,
always about you, is what I want to say.
yeah. And what's the metric? Is it 7? I think it's you have to tell somebody 7 times before they're actually going to get it. But
Well, yeah,
the reality is, you probably got to say it a whole lot more than 7,
yeah,
and it's going to be in different environments. It's going to be group environments. It's going to be written communication. It's going to be one-on-one. That's the conversation you just talked about, encouraging people to have. Like, man, it's so many times you got to remind people again, remind people again. This is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. And be creative. Put things around your office space or wherever in your locker room to remind people what we're doing. That's where, again, you watch Ted Lasso, he's got the believe sign in there. You watch My Beloved Irish, play like a champion today, baby. Even my third son, Jackson, that was on this podcast last year in the locker room of Belmont Abbey, where he plays soccer and the college, they've got all of their core values written out around their locker room that they have to memorize and take a test on before they get to start to practice during preseason in the fall. Like, having visual reminders is such a big deal. It's huge. There's a lot of Andy Stanley and his church at North Point, and I'm not here to debate his theology. There's a political stance. It's not what this is about. But his team went through, gosh, by now it might have been 10 years ago, a process to understand what were their core behaviors, not their beliefs, but their behaviors in their culture, on their team. What were their core behaviors? Because behaviors are things you do. And they came up with like 5, and one of them was make it better. It was
mm,
that simple. They got them down to just a few words, and I know, Dave, that speaks to your heart, but they got it
yeah,
down to a few words, and then they created, I don't remember if it was a cube or something like that, where they were able to write all the sayings on one thing and gave it to everybody so they had it on their desk.
mm,
So they could see those core behaviors day in and day out and be reminded, this is who we are, and this is who we espouse to be, and these are the core behaviors that get us there.
I love this. So good. All right, let's power down this podcast. I do want to say this is our first attempt at creating a blog, having a podcast, and there's also going to be 3 to 5 emails coming out on this. So if you want to get on the email distribution of this, it's going to be pretty thorough. We're going to be talking about this for a while. Doubt is a big deal. Doubt in performance, you being a team player, you being the best version of yourself, which includes making a lot of money, where you're at, and being successful, being a leader in your community, this is one of the, I think, one of the key attributes to playing like a champion and having a champion mindset, which includes stepping out on faith and developing your faith.
Well, I feel like we scratched the surface of the blog.
Yeah.
And so, again, to your point, I think we've got a few more conversations here to tee up to really hit this, because this is not something that you handle once and it goes away.
That's right.
Unfortunately, right? Think about it. It rears its ugly head at the worst times.
Yeah.
And if you're not at least expecting it, out in front of it, and then equipped on how to handle it, it will submarine you as a leader so fast and make you go, what is going on? All you got to do is read the book of Exodus and understand Moses was dealing with the same thing with these crazy people that still don't get it.
Good. That's good.
Right?
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, man. Appreciate you as always. We will see you next week. Thanks again for joining us. I want to give special thanks to our sponsor, M is Good. If you want to learn more about M is Good, go to misgood.com. Join us again next week as we continue to uncover the secrets to success with faith-based testimonies and the power of R7. Remember, destiny awaits, but time does not.